All right, everybody, welcome back to the second week of the Walk to Walk 17-week step intensive. Last week, Vinny came in and he went over the first part of step one, the allergy, and an introduction to the big book and an introduction to AA, and it was absolutely phenomenal. And tonight, I'm super excited to have him here tonight to go in to the mental obsession, and I'm looking forward to seeing what God's going to do with him tonight. So, brother Vinny, come on in, man. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Eric, and good to see everybody. Just want to start off a moment with silence for all the sick and suffering everywhere. Thank you, God. Two of my favorite prayers. God help me and thank you. I'm a recovered alcoholic, and my name is Vinny. God struck me sober March 9th, 2003. I had nothing to do with it, and I didn't want any part of it. But here I am. Good to see everybody. So last week we were talking about the physical phenomenon of craving, and I shared a story with you guys. And the story was about two of my high school buddies, right? That I had my first drunk with. Not my first drink, but my first drunk. And I had the phenomenon of craving immediately. My first drunk phenomenon of craving. With that being said, I told you the story about, having two and me fighting with the other guy for the third one. I won, woke up and puke, blah, blah, blah. Something happened to me physically, and something definitely happened to me mentally. So I didn't know what a mental obsession was. I did understand the phenomenon of craving when it was first explained to me because I had that experience. The mental obsession, I had it have it explained to me in a lot of different ways, and I'm going to share a little bit of my experience, and I'll jump into the book a little bit here and there. And the one thing that's really evident, especially now looking back as I speak and share with people and my sponsees, is most people have a hard time seeing the physical phenomenon of craving because they're looking in their mind for it, and you won't find it there. Right? I explained that last week. It's in the reaction, right? Maybe it takes two drinks, maybe three. It's never taken me one. If it's taken you one, okay, I understand. But usually takes two to three for something to start. And with that story that I share with you guys with my high school friends, right? And one I told you I shared with you guys, I winded up sponsoring years later before I moved out to San Diego. What happened when I woke up in vomit was I got yelled at, I got punished, I got thrown in the shower. My parents found me, it was a mess. But I started scheming ways of how to do it again. Even though it ended horrible. But I did remember it was really fun and really awesome before I didn't remember, right? So I had to wait a month because I was grounded well, they grounded me for 6 months. Mom felt bad and let me out after a month. So I waited a little while, right? Because we all know this illness, it's powerful, it's cunning, it's baffling, right? Had no idea. Planned my next weekend. I'm gonna tell my mom I'm sleeping over Matt's house. Matt's gonna tell his mom he's sleeping over my house. Jack is gonna tell them he's sleeping over one of our houses, and we're all gonna get together and do it again. And I'm gonna be honest with you guys, I could not wait to do it again. That's all I would think about. And this time I was like, we're not getting this cheap canned Schaefer. We're gonna buy the good stuff. All right. Jack had a liquor cabinet, vodka and orange juice. Yeah, buddy, here we go. Right. And tall 24-ounce with the straw. So nobody knew. And it was mixed with orange juice. Nobody could smell that, right? We're going to walk downtown. We're going to stay up late, even though we're only 16. We're going to get, and that continued and continued. And I could not wait to do it again and again and again and again. Why? It's a great question, right? Why? Because I have an obsession of the mind, because I'm an alcoholic, right? I didn't cross a line. I know some people had the phenomenon of craving and didn't have the obsession. I've heard stories. There's a story in our book about it, and I'll get to that in a little bit. There's also people that have had mental obsession but didn't have the physical craving where they met together to keep the cycle going, if that makes sense, right? Some people said they didn't cross the line. I hear all kinds of stories from alcoholics. If you listen around, put your big ears on, you'll listen and you'll hear stories, and they're not lying, especially the recovered alcoholics, right? I pay attention. So what I found out with looking at my story, because my sponsor, my grand sponsor, my great grand sponsor, they were real evident about looking into my story. Let's pull out. Let's pull it out. Let's look at the facts, right? And as we read page or we look into pages 23 to 43, 20 pages, right? That's where you're going to find the mental obsession. Remember, we talked about that earlier. From the doctor's opinion to page 23 is the physical phenomenon of craving, marked out perfectly in our big book. Thank God for the old timers and the predecessors that knew this book better than me. So I get into 23, and let me start the line with this, right? Everybody knows this, and there's a solution. So the observations would be academic and pointless if our friend never took the first drink, thereby setting the terrible cycle in motion. Therefore, the main problem of the alcoholic centers in his mind rather than in his body. Wait a minute. I got two different problems. I actually have three, but I'm learning about the second one now, right? Threefold illness. So here we are. The main problem centers in his mind. It's not the mind, but it centers in the mind. And remember, guys, we're on page 23. We're going to find out when we get to page 43, 44, 45, and 52 that the real problem is in the spirit. Or let me say this, the lack of spirit, the lack of reliance, the lack of connection, the lack of access that some of my religious friends would say. They would quote the Bible and know the book and have know Jesus and know the word, but they couldn't access that power. Profound. It sounds like Dr. Bob, if anybody knows about Dr. Bob, right? Guess who else? Roland Hazard. We're going to hear about that too a little bit. So, pages 23 to 43, we're going to look at the tragic truth, the fact, the great fact, the central fact. There is a solution. Does anybody know what the solution is? There's a solution. What's read right after that? The steps. There's only one. It's so simple, right? It blew right by me. So page 23, it's pointless, right? I need this. Let me back up because I get excited about the third part of this illness. But let's be honest. The mental obsession. Let me put it to you in another way. I remember this. This was a story that my sponsor had me repeat over and over again. 23. I was having a bad day at work. I'm on my way home, right? This was my plan. I'm going to go home. I'm going to take a shower, make a couple of phone calls, right? And the phone calls I was going to make is some booty calls, right? So I was trying to get outside myself. So I had a bad day at work. Nothing was going right. I'm driving home. I'm on the 94, right, in New York. I'm cruising by. And instead of getting off the exit to go to my house, I took the exit two exits before to the bar. It was called Amber Lantern. I had no intention of doing that. The mental obsession is just like that. I'm seeking, as the doctor's opinion says, comfort. right? Why? Because I'm uncomfortable. Not only am I seeking comfort, I'm seeking a solution. Alcohol was my solution, guys. It worked when everybody else failed and everything failed. I wanted to have that. What did I want to have? Ease and comfort, right? I want to be at ease and I want to be comfortable because I'm uncomfortable. How do we get comfortable from uncomfortable? I know exactly what's going to happen. A Heineken, 2 shots of Southern Comfort, and away we go. And if I have any Xanax on me, I'm popping them too, right? Let's make a slobbery mess out of myself because I had a bad day, but I had every intention of going home. So that's a little inkling, right? So also the book talks about once the malady has a real hold, we're a baffled lot. What does that mean? So if God has removed the obsession, I don't exactly know when. I was in the steps my first year and it was removed and it never came back. And I thank God for that every day. I don't know when, I don't know the date. I just know it was in the first year. I was in the middle of doing step work and I couldn't even tell you what step work I was actually doing, but I was doing step work, right? Turning statements into questions back in 2003, 2004. So this mental obsession, if it has a real hold on you, you're a baffled lot. What that means, the big book is saying you are going to drink, period. Period. So the question comes up a lot, am I recovered or am I recovering? Am I recovered from a hopeless state of mind? I am because I don't have an obsession. I may obsess on other stuff. That's not what the book's talking about, right? Because if I'm obsessing on alcohol, guess what? Here's another thing. I'm in my home group 3 weeks ago. A new guy comes back, chronic relapser, right? Really good guy. I don't know the whole issue, but he comes back from relapse again. And people in the meeting like, dude, pick up the phone before you go out to drink. Please stop. Think about what you're going to do. And I'm looking around the room and I'm like, what are they talking about? This guy will never pick if he has the obsession of the mind and he's a real alcoholic, guess what? He is not picking up a phone. That is not going to happen. He doesn't have power, choice, or control, right? So I'm looking around the room and I'm like, I wanted to come out of myself, right? But I'm not here to beat people over the head with the big book anymore. I'm not. I'm not here to use the big book as a weapon. But guess what? If I was going to go drink, the only thing that's going to stop me from that drink is God. Period. No human power. I place myself beyond human aid. When did I do that? When I became alcoholic. Or when I realized I was alcoholic. Even when I didn't realize I was alcoholic. I was beyond human aid for years. That's why I spent so many years drinking, using, and doing all other kind of stuff. Right? So the other thing, think the drink. What? The book tells us you ain't gonna think it through. You're gonna think it down because that's the only thing you can do if you have the obsession. Now, if you don't have the obsession, you're recovered from the mental obsession, right? It's pretty black and white. I don't like to use the word black and white, but man, sometimes the book points out these black ink on the white pages that you can't find a corner, can't find an easier, softer way. You just can't, right? So here's the other thing. The tragic truth. What's the book say? The day may never come for some of us. It may never come. More importantly, I don't know why that is. I don't I don't know why some people get it and some people don't. I stopped obsessing about that a long time ago. But what we realize on page 24, there's no defense. We also look at on page 24 where the hazy thoughts beyond human aid. It says it right there, right? So the mental obsession, man, let me tell you, I was praying all week and hanging out with God and contemplating some stuff. And I'm like, there's no way I'm going to cover this 20 pages, all this stuff that's in this. I'm like, God, why are you revealing all this stuff to me? I can't share about everything. There's too much here. There's so much. There's so much. And I'm hoping that I could touch some of it, right? Page 24, the fact is that most alcoholics, reasons yet obscure, have lost the power of choice in drink. Our so-called willpower becomes practically non-existent. We are unable at certain times to bring into our consciousness with sufficient force the memory of the suffering, the humiliation, or even a week or a month ago. We are without defense against the first drink. So right there, I'm not going to think it through. I'm not going to make some phone calls. I'm going to drink. And for me to drink is to die. Yeah, I may die spiritually first, or maybe I'll just die physically, right? I think the worst thing is to die spiritually a long time and drag many people down with me, all who care. That's how strong this mental obsession is. So it's hazy. I like when they talk about tendencies, right? Alcoholic tendencies. So then it says these are stark and ugly facts, have been confirmed by legions of alcoholics throughout history. But for the grace of God, there would have been thousands more convincing demonstrations. So many. And I'm one of those people. And I thank God from the bottom of my heart every day that I'm able to live a life that I live, the life of service, the life of sperata, being inspired. I love that Latin word, sperata, being inspired, being in spirit, being one with my creator. But in the mental obsession, I'm not there, right? I'm thinking my problem is my mind still, right? Like 23 said. So here's a good one, right? 20. I love page 25. Does anybody else love page 25? I love page 25. I could spend a whole day on just 25. So I'm gonna breeze through this. So there's a solution. We already talked about. What's the solution? Well, it says right there. Almost none of us like self-searching, the leveling of our pride, the confession of shortcomings, which the process requires for its successful consummation. Steps, steps, and more steps. But we saw that it really worked in others, and we had come to believe in the hopelessness of futility of life as we had been living it. Another key I want to point out. Here's a little assignment if somebody hasn't done it. Anytime you find the word approach in the big book, look at what it's meaning and look what it's trying to say. I do not, I was, thank God I was raised like this in AA back in New York. I do not give my phone number out to people. I do not raise my hand to say I'm available to sponsor. If I see someone in need, I make the approach. I don't make them come to me. That is not in our big book. We make the approach because it's in our book. A lot of people have different experiences. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying there's wrong or right. I'm just saying what the book says, right? And what my experience was. I make the approach. I make the approach. Now, I have been approached. Don't get me wrong. I've been approached plenty of times. But if I see someone that's new and I can help, I make the approach. And guess what I do? I ask them for their phone number because I really care and I'm going to call them if they oblige, right? That's that's just out of the book, guys. That's just me being a little bit tedious. But okay, next it says, here it is. When therefore we were approached by those whom the problem had been solved, there was nothing left for us but to pick up the spiritual kit laid at our feet. We have found much of heaven. And we've been rocking into the fourth dimension, the spiritual realm within. It exists, it's real. I got tons of stories. Maybe come back on the speaker meeting one day and share some of that crazy stuff. I've seen some crazy stuff. I'll give you one real quick, just because I got you on the ears. I got the big ears on. I went to a funeral for a native Indian friend that passed away from lung cancer. And me and my wife went. My wife came with me, right? My wife doesn't drink. She's not addict. But she decided to come with me. We went. It was really nice. It was another native Indian's home. And they had drums. They had the whole nine, guys. I mean, they were doing the native way of doing it. And it was beautiful celebration. Stories, food, everything. And it was in the house, a little bit on the hill in the woods. And as they were singing and chanting, it was I mean, San Diego, guys, blue, no clouds. To find a cloud, you'd have to drive 50 miles. Blue skies, sun shining. It's like 11 a.m. All of a sudden, the clouds start to form around the house. I'm talking dark, heavy clouds while this chanting and the singing's going on. And I got goosebumps just thinking about it. And I was inspired. I was like, wow, this is beautiful. I'm feeling something that I haven't felt in a long time. Then all of a sudden, the singing stops and they're praising and they're explaining what the ceremony is about, right? And my wife's like, hey, Vin, I'm going to go out and have a cigarette. I'm like, okay. She goes outside and all of a sudden, blue skies, the clouds are gone. And I'm talking within a 7-minute window. Just doesn't seem normal to me, but I'm trying to fight it in my mind. Then a hawk or a falcon or an eagle, some bird, flew into the window with its talons and perched for a second and then pushed off. And then they started chanting again. They said his soul is leaving. I was just like, what? My wife comes inside. Vin, did you see what happened outside? The clouds did look almost like a tornado. They circled and the chanting stopped. And then the clouds disappeared and this bird came flying. And I was like, I seen it all. It was just amazing. Anyway, let me move on. I get into this stuff, guys. Sorry if I took you off a little story there. All right. So where are we at? Page 25. One of my favorite pages. Great fact. The great fact is just this and nothing less, that we have had a deep and effective spiritual experiences. And then it has an asterisk. On the bottom of the page, it tells you to read appendix. Appendix 2, fully explained. What does that mean? This is where my sponsor said this is where we stop and we go there and read it and we tear it apart and we have an experience with it and then we come back to finish the reading. And that's what I did. And that's what I do. Okay. You'll have to see for yourself to what it means. Right? Because it's going to change. It's going to transform. And they're going to ask you again. And then when they think that they asked you twice to read it, they're going to ask you a third time in step 2. And there's a reason for that, guys. There's a deep and profound reason, just like the italics I read on the page before. Deep and profound. Pay attention to that stuff, guys. So I have a new attitude toward life, toward our fellows, towards God's universe. Have I had that experience? I have. More than once. More than once. And I'm having it right now. It's just beautiful, right? Because it's true for me. Now we're going to hear another fact. Central fact of our lives today is the absolute certainty that our Creator has entered into our hearts and lives in a way which is indeed miraculous. Entered my life. It is a miracle. We are all miracles here, especially all the first timers and newcomers, right? We had some newcomers here. Beautiful, beautiful to see that. I think I wrote the names down because I did a little prayer for you guys. Maria, welcome. Cheryl, Trisha, and Jules, right? And if you didn't announce yourself or raise your hand, we honor you and respect you. We understand. It's not easy. It's not easy, but we're here and it's simple. Derek said something in the beginning where, please, I'm going to beg you to find somebody that's been through this big book, all 164 and Dr. Bob's Nightmare and some more, and have them walk you through the steps, please. I beg you that. I beg you, because you don't even know what you're missing. My words will not ever do it justice. So, welcome to you guys. Welcome to anybody else that didn't introduce themselves. So, 25 is pretty powerful. All the good in my life has nothing to do with me. I've been a participant today. I've been a participant for the first time in my life in a long time. And I'm grateful for that. So everything good in my life, I say it's AA, but we all know where AA brings us. It brings us to, hopefully, it doesn't bring everybody in the big book. We hope. That's our hope. That's the big book's hope, right? We read that. We hope that you find one of these stories, right? I'm not going to go into that, but we just hope, because after going through the work, then I got reacquainted with this power, this loving power, and was able to have a relationship, a reliance, and access to power that I never had before. And that's for all of us, not just me. So then it comes down to this: two alternatives. There's not three. Me and my friend Michael, if anybody knows Michael Call, right? Me and him are good buddies. We've been doing this thing for a while and throwing workshops and helping people and just guiding people. I would when we're doing workshops together, I'm like, Michael, tell people about the third alternative. Vinny, stop. There is no third alternatives. I'm like, what are you talking about? People, they smoke, they have nicotine, they gamble, some of them have, sex on their phone. I mean, there's all kinds of third alternatives. Some of them shop like they're crazy. I mean, come on, and Vinny, no, there is no third alternatives. There's only two. But I'm here to tell you, if you're the real alcoholic and you're anything like me, we try to squeeze out a third alternative. Because why? We're seeking ease and comfort. And if we're not having a spiritual experience with this book, we're going to continue seeking ease and comfort outside of this book. And that's just the truth. I've seen it 30 years, 40 years, 20 years, relapse, die, blow their heads off, all because the mental obsession was not lifted, because they never accessed this power. And it's readily available to all of us. You never have to drink ever again. Not a day at a time. You never have to drink everything ever again. Just like page 144 says in our big book, ever again. All right. So where we go now? Oh, so we got the doctor's opinion, right? That was the first story. The second story was Bill's story, right? Third story. What's the third story? It's Roland Hazard, guys. Who's Roland Hazard? Roland Hazard is another rich New Yorker that found the Oxford group, kept on relapsing, met, I was going to say flew, took a boat across the ocean to go see the number 2 or number 3 doctor in the world, Dr. Carl Jung, has an explosive experience with him. What's he do? Before he gets back to the boat, he's drugged. He's like, what the hell is going on? And the doctor says, I've never seen anybody with the chronic mind that you have of an alcoholic ever recover. You have to lock yourself up, throw away the key. But he did not do that. He didn't get himself locked up and throw away the key. He had a spiritual experience and he got access to this power, right? And he's the one that gave the message to Abby Thatcher, who gave the message to Bill, why we are all here, right? And Bill gave it to Bob, and boom, the story goes on, right? It's living within us right now. What a beautiful story. So that's the third story. And he begged Carl Jung to tell him the truth, right? Some people can't see past the mental obsession. It's so powerful because here's the most simplest sentence. I never was drunk picking up my first drink. I was completely sober. Why did I pick up the first drink? Power, choice, and control. I had no power. I thought I had a choice. I don't have a choice today. And I'm okay with saying that. When it comes to alcohol, I do not have a choice, nor do I want one, right? Stone cold sober, the most insane thing I ever did was pick up again, not even realizing, not even remembering. We already read the book, right? What it said, blotting out. We don't even remember a month, week, a day, 2 days ago, right? It's gone. I puked. I don't remember puking and waking up and vomit and passed out and parents catching me and throwing me in a bathtub. I don't remember that. I just know I got ease and comfort. I'm just going to find that little space in between where I could get buzzed and stay good and drunk, remember everything, and be nice. That's insane, isn't it? But that's what I tried. I tried to do that, and I was successful at times. The mental obsession keeps me trying. That's how powerful it is. It keeps me trying. It centers in my mind. It keeps me trying. So then they tell us to read the appendix again on page 27. Why are they having me read this again? Right? Let's go over there. So they're talking about the spiritual experience, right? That Roland Hazard is having with Carl Jung. And there's an asterisk, and the asterisk comes on this. In fact, another fact, guys. They like that word fact. I have been trying to produce some such emotional arrangement within you, with many individuals, the methods which I employed are successful, but I have never been successful with an alcoholic of your description. Why did I have us read in the spiritual experience after that? You'll have to read it after you read that paragraph again to have your own experience, right? I'm going to set aside everything I think I know, but I had my own experience, right? So it ain't going to happen. But there's hope. There's a promise, right? What's the hope and promise? Well, first, let's get to the terrible dilemma. It's a terrible dilemma because in which our friend had found himself when he had extraordinary experiences, which, as we have already told you, made him a free man. We in turn sought the same escape with all the desperation of a drowning man. Let's pause there for a second. Has anybody ever drowned? Just raise your hand a little bit if you drowned. I drowned a couple times, and let me tell you, if you are drowning, it could be your mom, your dad, your best friend, your wife, your 10-year-old child. You will kill them to survive when you're drowning because you go directly into fight or flight. The brain accesses the old threadbare that you need to survive and you're doing anything at it. So if your 10-year-old son knows how to swim, but he outweighs, he's underweighing you, you will kill him to survive if you're drowning. That's the desperation these guys are talking about, guys. That's the desperation to find out what this phenomenon of craving is all about, to find out what this obsession is about, find out what is the antidote to the mental obsession. What are these guys talking about? What is this old 1930s book trying to tell me? Well, they already said we like them when they're desperate because the desperate they are, usually they follow directions, right? And that was so with me. Pain was my motivator, right? Remember I told you last week, I don't surrender. I don't know how to surrender. I never surrendered. I become surrendered. I become surrendered by circumstances or by God. Either way, I become surrendered. So I hope you have desperation of a drowning man if you're new and you want this. It is life or death for me. It still is life or death for me. So what seemed a flimsy reed has proved to be the loving and powerful hand of God. They're talking about God all through this first step. They're talking about God in the doctor's opinion. We don't need to wait till step 2 or step 3 to talk about God. That's not what this book is designing to do, right? So if you have a problem with that God, there's a place on page 45, the last couple of paragraphs. If you have a sponsor, have them guide you through those questions. There's a lot of questions that can help you with that, get you separated from your old beliefs and old ideas to have a new experience. And that's what I pray for anybody that I'm working with, right? And I do that exercise myself. So here's the thing. A lot of religious people have a hard time with this, right? Roland Hazard did, Dr. Bob did, and there's a couple of stories in the back of the book. Nothing bad about religion. If you are highly religious, but you can't stay sober, it's not the religion, it's the lack of access. So there's a big difference between being a very religious, intellect, smart individual and having a spiritual experience with access and reliance. There's a big difference. And later on in the book, it talks about bridge to shore, and we hope people cross the bridge. Don't hang on the bridge too long. I'll be the first to tell you, don't hang on the bridge too long. All right, moving on. So the dilemma is I need access, and most people don't get it. Now, we're going to go to more about alcoholism, right? Page 30. This is a good one. This is where I made my first conscious contact with God. Yeah, I did the prayer. God, please help me. Yeah, I did a lot of, foxhole prayers that you guys hear. Please get me out of this one. I won't do it again. Yeah, I prayed. Yeah, I had belief systems, all that stuff. But when I conceded to my innermost self, we read later on that the power is deep down within every one of us. And in the last analysis, it's only there that it can be found. That's a pretty profound statement. So if it's in there and I'm conceding to my innermost self, the best part of me, guess what I'm doing? I'm having a conscious contact with my creator. Even if I don't believe, even if I don't understand it, it doesn't matter. And that's what happened to me. I got to this place where I started conceding because the mental obsession was real, man. I knew what I was going to do and I didn't want to do it and I couldn't stop it. I couldn't stop it. No power, no choice, no control. Never had it. Guess what? I never will. I have access to power. Kind of like your cell phone. It'll die if you don't plug it in. I have to plug in and I have to plug in every day. And I have to plug in sometimes all day. And when I forget to, I run low. I don't have bad days. I have bad moments, but I run low. I don't want to run low. So, like my sponsor says, if I'm walking through Home Depot, all right, God, show me what aisle I need to be in. Make it quick and pretty. Keep it simple. Guide me, direct me. I get caught up in those shiny tools. Please, God, help me see the truth. And all of a sudden, a lady will come up to me and my sponsor. Hey, you could go down this aisle. I know exactly what you're looking for. Oh, thank God. Because you know what the alternative is? There is no third alternatives. I'm going to spend a fortune that I don't have and that I don't need. That's quality problems, right? But if I give it enough enthusiasm, I, it'll lead down a dark hole. I've been there. All right, moving on. After I concede to my innermost self, something then happens to me. I get a snidbit of access, a snidbit. And I mean that because I don't even realize what I'm doing. I don't realize I'm accessing this power. And I'm like, all right, I don't know if that worked, but let's move on. You remember how the book says worldly clamors, right? Bill's story. It gets shut down real quick. And that was my experience too. So deep down within, we try, we think, and we lose. That's just been my story. It's kind of like we don't grow new legs, right? We You ain't growing new legs. I'm not gonna be like a non-addict. It's never going to happen, right? Then a mental obsession shows me how too. It's pretty. So it's also the chapter three, more about alcoholism. We're going to look at denial, delusion, and illusion, right? I have a lot of illusions. They're kind of fun. They'll take you down a rabbit hole for sure. Sober. And I'm telling you this all completely sober, right? So here's the fourth story. This is a good one. I like this one. Page 32, right? So the book calls it A Man of 30. I call them Mr. Carpet Slippers because that's how I was raised in New York. We called them Mr. Carpet Slippers, right? Here's the story, which I later learned from Mark Houston, Joe Hawk, and Tyler, and a few others that smashed the head over my head. Is that this guy? How the hell did he drink like me, stop abruptly, and go back to work and say, you know what, I'm going to cut this out? And just, he's got to be a hard drinker, right? Or he's got to be a non-alcoholic, right? He's got to be somebody that could give or take it away. No, it was made pretty clear to me that he didn't have the mental obsession. He had the phenomenon of craving. So he was alcoholic, didn't know it until the mental obsession meets the physical craving. Oh my God. You want to talk about a baffle lot? The best word that I could use, and I'm sorry to say it, Eric, but you're fucked. Once those two meet, because they don't always meet together. And that's what makes a lot of people not realize they're real alcoholics. Because they don't have the guidance, maybe. I don't know. I don't know. I don't have the answer. But I just know that the mental obsession and the physical phenomenon of craving, they don't always meet. And when they do, oh, it's fireworks, man. You talk about Bill's story on a plane with Ebby. Could you imagine? There's a whole bunch of stories if you read like how the big book was written, AA Comes of Age. There's a lot of other books you get more information about this, but they had some fun. Crazy, crazy stuff, right? So now that we're looking at Mr. Carpet Slippers, he was able to stay away for so many years. And then when he retired, yeah, he had a few misgivings, but he died. He died. Sad. Some of us don't know this. Some of us don't have the knowledge. And that's what we're here for. Big books, people. People, this meeting, people like Derek, people like Eric, we're trying to give you this information so you don't have to. So you could stay here with us and have fun and live a life that's worth living with your creator. Okay. I know. I'm never going to touch all of this stuff. There's just so much stuff, guys. So if I move a little bit forward, I think it's on what page is it now? 35? I want to say it's 35. Oh yeah, 35. Jim's story. There's another one. There's another guy. Another story, right? That's the fifth story, I believe. And Jim's story is great. Obsession is vague. It's vague. It comes across vague, right? See, remember the story from Bill when he made the phone call to Henrietta, right? He was crossing the threshold. He thought a drink. He didn't have the obsession. He was recovered from it. Jim, he was not recovered. Vaguely since he was doing what? What does it say? I ordered whiskey and poured it into milk. I vaguely sensed I was not being too smart. It was vague. The obsession is vague. So the obsession is a lot of things, right? And if we look at the jaywalker, the sixth story, that's insanity, right? But if we put your name instead of the jaywalker and say Vinny in bars and clubs, and you could make your own jaywalker story and see how insane you really are, drunk and sober, right? And let me speed up to the last story. This is a good one. 39. Fred's story, right? Fred's story is awesome. He had a resentment. Maybe he did the first three steps, or maybe he didn't. Maybe he didn't do. any of it. Or maybe he did all 12 or 11 steps and he didn't do the 12th one to give it away, which is the antidote to our illness. Selfishness, self-centeredness, driven by 100 forms of fear, 100 forms of self-pity. I could go on. There's only one antidote: deep working with others, deeply, intensively, right? So maybe he didn't, but he got drunk and they sat down to tell him the whole story. And guess what? They made the approach to him. You'll find that word approach again. So I hope that I covered some things. I hope that God was here and did whatever he does. I don't remember half I said, but I just wanted to say this. Thank you guys for having me another week. It's been awesome. This mental obsession is powerful, but you can recover from it. And we're going to talk next week about how to recover from it. See you then.